for the big picture and also for the confidence that Europe will master this challenge. I hope very much that you are right, not only in the medium and long term, that Europe will become not only sovereign in its own security matters, but acting as a geopolitical, as a global power. But also in the short term, and this is what I'm nervous about. In a war, speed matters. And we, the big we, especially the Western Europeans and also Germany, we have been too slow in the last 3 years since the start of the all-out war of Russia against Ukraine and against the European security order. And I hope very, very much that will change. And this is not just a matter of resources. It's a matter of mentality. We need a change of the mindset. This may not be so much the case for the Baltic countries or for Poland or the Scandinavians, but it is for sure the case for Germany. Understanding that we have to prepare for war, to prevent war. This is a huge change for the German worldview. And this is not so much a matter of resources, as you convincingly explained, it's a matter of political will. And thank you also for figuring out that those are wrong who want to get rid of our obligations towards Ukraine because they see Ukraine as a burden. No, it's the other way around. Ukraine is an asset. Ukraine is the backbone for European security today and also in the future. So a lot of stuff to discuss in our first panel. I would like to invite the participants to join us at the stage, and we'll briefly introduce them. Besides Andrius, welcome to Alda Vanaga. She's the ambassador of the Republic Latvia in the, to Germany. Welcome, and please. Marek Świerczyński, he's the head of the Department for Security and International Affairs at Polityka Inside in Warsaw. Welcome. Marieluise, you already know her. Welcome again. And I hope very much that Dmytro Kuleba is with us. Can we see him at the screen? He wanted to join us online. He's not there yet? Okay, then we will begin and hope that he will join us in a minute. Maybe I would like to start with you, Ambassador Vanaga. What are your reflections on the speech of Andrius? Yeah, how do you see not only the challenges we are facing, I think there is not so much difference about that, but our ability to act now?
Thank you so much. And first of all, thank you for this possibility to be here and to speak in this distinguished panel. I agree what Mr. Kubilius said, and it's time for us, for Europe, for Germany, to take more responsibility and to invest more in our own security. I think it's not so important. It's no matter what we think about one or another event in the United States. But we should remember that United States are significant power economically, military. It's a superpower in the world. Europe is not weak. Europe is not hopeless and helpless, but stronger. We are stronger when we are together, and without support of United States, it would be difficult for Europe. But I would say also another way around. Also, United States are stronger when we act together. So I think United States needs Europe too. Maybe I can also compare the situation a little bit with a family. In family also we have disagreements and discussions, but when it comes to bigger challenges like Russia or China, it's wiser and it's easier to tackle these challenges together.
So let me add another question. How to respond to the current US policy and to Trump's? Yeah, are we willing and able to counter the US? How can we, the Europeans, play a role in the upcoming negotiations? And is there a kind of common understanding between the members of the European Union, at least between a coalition of the willing in Europe? What are our goals regarding the endgame of the war in Ukraine? And what are the essentials for any kind of political agreement?
I can say that Latvia is taking responsibility and the security of Europe and Latvia very seriously. Latvia is investing in defense 3.5% of GDP. This year, the government took already the decision to achieve this year 4% of GDP for defense. And next year, we are hoping to reach 5% of our GDP for our defense. So I think it shows how Latvia thinks on its own security. We have reintroduced military service. We have an increasing numbers of national guards. We do a lot in civil protection. Actually, everyone in Latvia knows how to survive first 72 hours in case of crisis. We don't speak about war, but let's say on crisis. I would like to see such activities and such investment also in other countries. As ambassador in Germany, I was really happy to see the last decisions of German government. The German government invested or took decisions now to invest heavily in their own defense. It will be interesting for me to follow how it will be implemented. But I would say I see like Zeitenwende number 2 at the moment. In Europe, we have to show our example and try to convince all our partners to do the same.
Thank you. Marek, a similar question to you. Then how to get from the current European position of commenting what the US and Trump is doing into a more active role? Yeah, really how to shape things now, politically, militarily, and have a real impact on the outcome of the war.
Thank you, Ralf. Thank you all for having me here. It's a great opportunity. I would say that, you know, on one hand, it's what the commissioner said: keep calm and carry on. Being aware of our own interests and being able to communicate even the red lines, yes, against against Mr. Trump and against any other participant of that process. On the other hand, of course, I wouldn't use as much the term to counter Mr. Trump and the U.S. administration. I would rather see it as a conversation, to the extent, of course, the conversation is at all possible. But I guess we have seen some successful examples. That is President Macron and Prime Minister Starmer, yes, visiting the White House and engaging in some kind of conversation which wasn't quite fruitless, yes, which actually opened up the White House to the views of the Europeans, to the extent that the White House is at all being able to be open to the views of the Europeans. But I guess putting ourselves in the contradictory mode wouldn't be quite helpful, and especially to those countries who, like Poland and the Baltic states, are, I would say, more dependent on the U.S. defense and security policies than some countries in the Western Europe. So I guess we need to do both, engaging and doing our job, and of course, keeping the strong azimuth on helping Ukraine, as you've stressed yourself.
Andrius, as far as you can comment on this issue in your new diplomatic role, do you think Europeans will be able to convince Trump to change course? Or, of course, we should try? Or do we need a kind of plan B? Yeah, what will we do if Trump is willing to push Ukraine under the bus? Yeah, to throw it under the bus and to demand from Ukraine extremely harmful concessions, not only for the future of Ukraine, but also contradicting the European interests. What will we do?
Well, I think that we're doing. Maybe not directly, maybe not sitting, around the same table with delegation from the United States, which I don't know if that's very prudent. Maybe to have common, approach, both United States and European Union would be better. Maybe we could, even appoint somebody who would be leading our side, delegation to the whole process. But we are sending very clear and strong messages, both to Putin, but also to United States administration. And to Ukrainians, definitely, First of all of us, we agree that really, peace is very much, needed, first of all, for Ukrainians, but the just peace can come only through peace, through strength. Strength to Ukraine, additional strength to Ukraine, can come only from our side. I mean, not only EU, it would be good if also the United States would participate in that, but we cannot ask Ukrainians themselves to become stronger. So strength can come only from our side. And what was announced recently by European Union, with all those Rearm Europe program with new finances, what Germany announced, also they, those programs are creating new possibilities, new opportunities for member states to strengthen very much their support to Ukraine. For example, 150 billion euros attractive loans backed by European Union budget can be used by member states together with Ukraine, in Ukraine, for Ukraine. You know, buying Ukrainian production and giving that production to Ukrainian army. I hope that really member states will use this opportunity really to strengthen our support, because the loans are very attractive. It's 45 years maturity of the loan. It's 10 years grace. So we can really be here quite creative and looking how we can, you know, really do our job. Second, when, you know, in the media, I don't know that is objective or not objective, information comes out that maybe there are negotiations about territories of Ukraine, that, you know, Americans will give up and will allow Russia to, how to say, you know, to keep as their territory, for example, Crimea. It was very clear European answer that European Union will never recognize occupation of the territories. That's again very strong signal. So that's what, you know, we shall continue to do. That can influence also, I hope, you know, American position. From another side, we need to start to look also into our obligations and our responsibilities to assist Ukraine if ceasefire will come. Because first of all, what we need to understand, if ceasefire is coming, first we need to understand that Russians will not stop producing the weapons with their war economy. So that's what we need to keep in mind. What I am worried a little bit about psychology of relaxation, you know, especially in the European Union, when member states or some politicians will say, okay, peace is here, you know, let's relax. So first of all, again, that was very clear message from Ursula von der Leyen, that what are the best security guarantees for Ukraine is with our assistance to make Ukraine what she called still porcupine, you know, that strange animal, which nobody can, you know, can attack him. That's our answer again. What we're going to do. We're going to now really to continue strengthening ourselves, but also strengthening Ukraine. You know, modernizing, assisting her to modernize their own, you know, military forces, to bring, you know, more weapons and so on and so on. The same with the next agenda, you know. If really here will come peace, we need to be ready to step up with our efforts to assist Ukraine with reconstruction, and also with much more rapid integration towards EU. So I see here we have very clear strategy. Maybe we are not so much involved into some kind of those, you know, roundtable discussions somewhere in El Riyadh, but we have very clear vision what we need to do, and we are doing.
Thanks a lot. Meanwhile, Mr. Kubilius, sorry, Dmytro Kuleba has joined us. So welcome, Dmytro. Before I call you, I would like to ask Marieluise, compared to our private conversations and discussions, this is, I would say, a much more confident, forward-looking, and even slightly optimistic discussion. Are you convinced? Marie?
Ich glaube, es ist alternativlos. Das ist ganz einfach. Und trotzdem ist die Wirklichkeit, die hinter diesem Ziel steht, wir müssen gemeinsam mit der Ukraine die europäische Friedensordnung, die Geltung von Grenzen, das Völkerrecht, die Souveränität von Staaten, die Bündnisfreiheit, das alles steht zur Disposition. Aber wer in die Ukraine geht, oder wir erleben es auch hier, muss sich schon der Realität stellen, dass das einen ungeheuerlich großen Preis hat und dass in der Ukraine sehr wohl und ja auch zu Recht die Frage gestellt wird, lasst ihr uns nicht für etwas bluten, bei dem ihr euch einen schlanken Fuß macht. Jewgenia Belarusits, viele von Ihnen kennen sie sicherlich, ganz nah bei den Menschen in der Ukraine. Sie kommt aus dem Donbass, sie geht in die Region. Sie sagt, das Sterben muss aufhören. Das Sterben muss endlich aufhören. Und mit dieser Entwicklung, die wir im Augenblick sehen, können wir das überhaupt nicht, wir können keinerlei Versprechen und Zuversicht geben, dass das Sterben aufhört oder dass es zumindest verlangsamt wird. Weil das, was wir wissen, was jetzt passieren könnte und was das Erpressungsszenarium von Trump und Musk sind, ist überwältigend. Und wenn es wirklich eingesetzt wird und die Europäische Union ins Obligo geht mit dem, was sie hat, wissen wir alle, dass sie sehr viel weniger hat als das, was aus den USA kommt, beginnend bei der Starlink-Unterstützung. Also wenn tatsächlich die Trump-Administration ernst macht, du sagst immer, und die Ukraine unter den Bus wirft, dann ist wirklich die Frage, was wird den ukrainischen Menschen noch zugemutet und was sagen wir, die wir wissen, unsere Sicherheit wird in der Ukraine verteidigt, aber auskämpfen und mit ihren Zivilisten, mit ihrer Zerstörung, mit ihrem Leid es austragen, das ist derzeit ausschließlich die Ukraine. Und das ist sehr bitter. Das kann uns auch nicht vollkommen freisprechen von den Versäumnissen der vergangenen Jahre. Denn es ist ja nicht so gewesen, dass diese Entwicklung nicht gesehen worden wäre. Sie ist benannt worden. Die größte Sicherheit, dass wir einen richtigen Kompass haben, sind die Polen, sind die baltischen Staaten gewesen, ist Finnland gewesen, dass die Empfehlungen von unserer Seite mit der Neutralität könne man ja auch gut leben, siehe nach Finnland. Finnland entscheidet sich, unter das Dach der NATO zu gehen. Schweden entscheidet sich, unter das Dach der NATO zu gehen. Das hat ja Gründe. Das kleine Dänemark stellt sich das, und das sind für uns ja die Synonyme für Friedenspolitik gewesen, Dänemark, Schweden, Finnland. Ihre Friedenspolitik oder Sicherungspolitik ist ganz offensichtlich, sie rüsten auf. Und der Satz, wer den Krieg verhindern will, muss ihn vorbereiten, ist so unendlich gültig. Aber wir haben in Deutschland uns massiv verweigert. Wir haben gezögert. Wir haben sogar, ich finde, in sehr unzulässiger Weise Interessen unserer Bevölkerung gegen die der Ukraine gestellt, wenn man gesagt hat, aber aus unseren Renten darf es nicht kommen. Das hat ja Spuren gelegt. Und ich hoffe, dass wir sehr schnell uns aus dieser Ohne-mich-Haltung in Deutschland freischwimmen und alles tun, was wir können, damit der Preis für die Ukraine nicht noch höher wird.
Vielen Dank. Dmytro, ich würde den Ball gerne jetzt an Sie weiterspielen aus der ukrainischen Perspektive. Wie kann die Ukraine sich gegenüber diesem doppelten Druck durch Putin und Trump behaupten? Und was sind Ihre Erwartungen an die anderen Europäer in dieser Situation? Was können und was müssen wir jetzt tun, um die Ukraine in eine möglichst starke Position zu bringen?
Since it's the first time that I'm taking the floor, I would like to say hi to all panelists, distinguished panelists, and to all the participants of the conference. Ukraine's perspective is that the end of the war is out of sight. There is a lot of noise. There is a lot of talks, phone calls, meetings, decisions. But Ukrainians look around. They see how Russia is bombing our cities. They see how Russia is undertaking on-the-ground offensives. And they kind of come to the conclusion that talks happen separately and war takes place separately from talks. So this is the impression of an ordinary Ukrainian, if I may, of course, generalize it to that extent. Of course, there are different there can be different views on that, but this is more or less the perception that we have and share. The question, of course, what can we do, but also how long can we do it? And I think, and when I say we have to be very specific on this, right? It's Ukraine, it's the rest of Europe. So what Ukraine can contribute to this reality that has unfolded recently is to continue demonstrating its willingness to defend itself and its capability of making domestic decisions which help strengthen its resistance. These decisions should relate to continued increasing of defense production, but also to governance and efficiency increasing efficiency in the armed forces. I'm not saying that everything is bad in these areas. We have made remarkable, unprecedented progress amidst the war, but sky is the limit, and we have to keep improving ourselves because it's a matter of our own survival. And then comes Europe. I think the best Europe can do is to learn how to act fast and not to allow the decisions which have emerged over the last weeks to dissolve not to allow that they be dissolved in endless procedures, alignments, and political debates. I believe the moment has come for Europeans to exclude the issue of European defense from political debates. We don't have time to debate. We need to act. So ideally, in a perfect world, all political forces, all citizens should agree that we should not fight over discussing the ways how decisions to rearm Europe should be implemented. The implementation of these decisions should start now. Losing time means losing security, first in Ukraine and then in the rest of Europe. So this is what Ukrainians expect from Europe more than anything else. It's the speed of action. Europe has a mixed record on that, but we have to learn the lessons and to do our best to make things happen at a good pace. And Putin and Trump, they understand that Europe can become a game changer if it acts fast. So on their side, they will be doing everything to put pressure on Ukraine and on Europe in order not to in order to create a situation where their narrative and their positions will dominate the discourse.
Thanks a lot, Dmytro. I have one immediate following question. How would you define Ukrainian victory under the current circumstances?
That's a very political question, I must say. And as you know, the issue of victory, the notion of victory has evolved over the last 3 years. I believe the mistake that politicians are making these days, especially in Europe, is that the word victory disappeared from political vocabulary. No one is talking about Ukraine's victory anymore without even, and we haven't even reached the stage where we are to define what that victory should look like. Look at the Russians. If you listen to what Russian officials are saying, they define their victory in exactly the same terms as they did in February 2022.
Yeah.
They do not shy away to repeat in words and in deeds once again and again that they will not be in a position to deviating 1 centimeter from the initial notion. Now, the dominating discourse in European politics is that we shouldn't be talking about victory of Ukraine because it's kind of impossible to achieve now. Of course, the moment you yourself lower the threshold of your expectations, your enemy takes it as a message, but also it has direct impact on the decisions that you are taking. So for pure purposes of political strategy and military strategy, the word victory should be reinstated in the political vocabulary. Otherwise, if we do not do that, then any result will be, any outcome of the war will be perceived as a loss. Because if you fail to frame something as a victory, then people see it as a loss. And that will have detrimental consequences for the post-war period.
Thanks a lot, Dmytro. Quick round along the panel. How would you comment on these remarks of Dmytro Kuleba? And from the European, the EU perspective, of course, Ukraine is part of Europe. What is the minimum to achieve in this war? Would you start, Marek?
Yes, true that we've somehow forgotten what is the victory for Ukraine. But I guess we should define it at the current moment with all those complexities as not allowing for a Russian victory to happen, which is, of course, to preserve sovereignty of the Ukrainian state and well-being in the terms of rebuilding Ukraine of its citizens for many years ahead, even if the current complexities do not allow for Ukraine to regain its all internationally recognized territory. That's number one. Second thing is preserving European security order that is not to be dictated from Moscow or with kind of, agreement between the superpowers of this world. And third, preserving European defense against any further threat to Ukraine and to the rest of Europe. And of course, those three tasks combined are such a burden. But again, they are, I would say, a generational challenge. I mean, if we don't stand to that challenge, then basically we will lose that game or that war.
Thanks a lot, Madam Ambassador.
I agree with Mr. Kuleba in with that Europe can be game changer if we act fast, and that's one thing. And another one, I think we have to change our mindset. What Mr. Kubilius mentioned, the perception of threat in the Baltics and the Nordic countries are different as in many other Western European countries. And also our support for Ukraine is because we clearly understand it's also our war. Ukraine is defending our freedom, our democracy. In other countries, also in Germany, this big support that Germany is doing for Ukraine is because of solidarity, not so much as it is a real threat. Russia is a real threat for Germany, and I would love to change this mindset, and I really hope it will come. It will make also for German government easier to take some tough decisions.
Thanks. Andrius, what are the basic goals we have to achieve as the European Union?
Well, perhaps we need to look, into issue, how to say, line by line, on territories of Ukraine. Even President Zelensky have said that perhaps, some territories for time being will stay occupied, but they will be, their future, and their return to Ukraine will be how to say, decided or steps will be done in diplomatic way, looking into a longer term future. Here, as sitting two Baltic states, we can remind everybody that we were occupied for 50 years, and occupation was not recognized, and that really changed our future when time came, for some kind of peaceful liberation of ourselves. So I'm not saying that next 50 years, Crimea and other territories should stay occupied by Russia. But let's look in some way, here through the eyes of real things, and that's what I see as real possibility. How we need to look into that situation. Definitely, we cannot agree with occupation of the territories and making those territories part of Russia. The question is, if we are not recognizing occupation, what does it mean in our policy towards Russia? And that is why I see another line very important, because definitely the question will be, when peace will come, what will be in some way relations in between of the West and Russia? And here perhaps we can see, at least for time being, some possible differences. I don't know how we need to understand some language which we hear from Washington, D.C., that they want to reestablish very good relations with Russia. For me, it looks like really dangerous tendency, because reestablishment of good relations with aggressor, it does not bring any kind of benefit, for democratic world. That can be an encouragement not only for, aggressive behavior of Putin, but also encouragement for other possible aggressors. We know whom we can talk about and who is watching very, very carefully, and who can make a decision that the West is weak, and you can do what you want in some other territories, maybe far away from European continent. Second, what we need to take care, again, I said, we cannot agree with any kind of pretensions that Ukrainian military power should be in some way regulated or diminished and so on and so on. That is why what Commission President said, this still porcupine strategy, still I am blending that word, that's exactly our answer. Ukrainians will have very strong army, and that is our position. And second, if peace is coming, really success of Ukrainian integration, creation of the success of Ukraine through integration into European Union, this is again our answer, even to Putin, because, well, I don't want to elaborate too much about, I'm always was asking myself why Putin started this terrible, criminal, and really, whatever, war, which, for me looked like total nonsense, for Russia to start the war against Ukraine. I came in to my own conclusion that one of the reasons why Putin decided to start this war against Ukraine, it was not that he was afraid that Ukraine can become a member of NATO, because Putin understands very well that NATO is not an aggressive alliance. He was not so much afraid when Finland and Sweden became members of NATO. He was really, again, I don't believe in his stories about Ukraine belonging always to Russia, and this is, that he is grabbing territory back like Peter the Great. The only one rational reason why I thought that Putin started this war was because he was afraid of Ukrainian possible success through integration into European Union. Because success of Ukraine can be very dangerous to Putin regime when ordinary Russian people will start to ask some very tough questions, back home in Russia. So our policy towards creation of success of Ukraine exactly would be a very proper answer to Putin's attempts to destroy the success.
Thanks a lot. Marieluise.
Die deutsche Perspektive vielleicht. Es ist richtig und es ist gut, Botschafterin Vanaga, dass Sie daran erinnert haben, dass wir in Deutschland einen mentalen Shift vornehmen müssen, nämlich nicht die Großzügigkeit von Deutschland, auch diese Ukraine militärisch und finanziell zu unterstützen, sondern in dem Bewusstsein, dass dort etwas für uns erledigt wird, und zwar uns die Möglichkeit gibt, doch ziemlich warm und trocken zu sitzen, während die Ukraine die unendliche Bitterkeit und das Leid, die Zerstörung, der Verlust von Familien, Menschen, die aus dem Krieg zurückkommen und schwer verletzt sind, das alles spielt sich in der Ukraine ab. Und es hat etwas mit unserem Interesse zu tun. Ich glaube, das ist unendlich wichtig, dass dieses Bewusstsein einsickert in die deutsche Politik. Wir müssen außerdem mit Lebenslügen aufrechnen und Schluss machen. Wenn gesagt wurde, Minsk war berechtigt, denn es hat der Ukraine Zeit gekauft, wäre es richtig, wenn diese Jahre benutzt worden wären, um die Ukraine aufzurüsten. Aber nichts ist passiert in dieser Hinsicht, jedenfalls nicht von Deutschland aus, sondern wir hatten eher Bemerkungen von Säbelrasseln wegen Manövern, die in Polen abgehalten worden sind und ähnliches mehr. Ein Sieg für die Ukraine bedeutet auf jeden Fall als erstes keinerlei Anerkennung von annektierten Territorien, auch nicht von der Krim, mit dem, sie war doch immer schon russisch, das muss man doch verstehen, das ist weit verbreitet in Deutschland. Also keine Anerkennung, und ich glaube auch, da es tatsächlich so zu sein scheint, dass die NATO wegen ihrer inneren Zerrissenheit nicht die Kraft haben wird, die Ukraine aufzunehmen, was ich für dramatisch halte und was auch sicherlich 2008 ein dramatischer Fehler war, dass jetzt das passieren muss, was wir können, und das ist ein super schneller Weg in die EU, vermutlich sogar mit einer EU von verschiedenen Geschwindigkeiten. Es geht jetzt nicht mehr um das Festhalten an alten Vorstellungen, was die Europäische Union gewesen ist, sondern wir müssen neue Vorstellungen und damit auch Möglichkeiten entwickeln, weil die Europäische Union als Sicherheitsgemeinschaft eine ganz andere Rolle bekommt, als wie wir uns vor 10 Jahren vermutlich vorgestellt haben.
Thanks a lot, Marie. Before we open the floor for some questions from the audience, I would like to come back to a topic already raised by Andrius, and this is the future policy towards Russia. If you listen to Trump, he is willing to sweep everything under the carpet, Russian war crimes, the abduction of Ukrainian children, the legal responsibility of the Russian leadership for war of aggression, and he is proclaiming a return to kind of grand bargain, and we will have a wonderful cooperation with Russia and huge economic opportunities. So what is our answer? What do you think must be the future Russian policy of Europe, Marek?
Yes, I guess this is the biggest problem for us, because we start thinking, all right, so if our big friend from across the ocean, the beautiful ocean, is getting friendly with our biggest foe from across the border, then who is he? Yes. In countries like Poland, I guess people are scratching their heads and they're losing their hair by scratching because of that question. I guess the simplest and most honest answer is to carry on regardless. I mean, stick to our values, stick to our realities, stick to our strengths, because, arguably, this has been repeated during this panel many times. Europe has its strengths, and it can, do a lot for itself. We don't know what will be the outcome of those grand bargains between Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin. It may as well be nothing significant. I mean, they can talk forever, while the war will be going for much longer, and we will need to do our job regardless. Yes, because we don't have time. That is point number one. So for the time being, I guess, for the honesty of our policies and for the strength of our strategy, we need to speak our mind and become the geopolitical Europe.
Thanks. Dmytro, yes, please. Dmytro, because we know that you have to leave at 3 p.m., maybe any intermediary comment from your side?
No, I just want to say I share what has been said by distinguished colleagues. I just can reinforce that all Europe has to do is to finally start to believe in itself. And once that is done, all the decisions are going to follow.
Thanks a lot. So, ja, Marie, please.
Ich muss noch mal ganz kurz zu Deutschland ein paar wirklich sehr irritierende Entwicklungen benennen hier. Das ist bereits wieder in Baku in unterschiedlichen Formationen und in Kadynabia. Und ich hoffe, dass Konrad Adenauer sich im Grabe rumdrehen würde. die Warnix und Kollegen bereits wieder unterwegs sind, um die nächste Nord Stream 2 Nummer zu schieben, ist einfach sowas von irritierend und wir müssen uns schämen, wenn wir an unsere polnischen und baltischen Nachbarn denken. Und ich würde mir auch sehr wünschen, dass wir selbst mit den Sondierungsgruppen, die jetzt bestehen und den Verhandlungsgruppen von Seiten der Union ein klares Zeichen bekommen, dass sie die Vertreter dieser Fantasien, die bereits wieder blühen, nicht an prominenter Stelle in ihre Verhandlungskommissionen schickt.
Thanks a lot. This gives me the opportunity to remind you, if you don't know already, we launched yesterday an open letter to the negotiation teams of the Social Democrats and the Christian Democrats, asking to exclude the restoration of the Nord Stream pipelines in the coalition treaty and to put an end to all speculations in that direction. Madam Ambassador.
I just wanted to add one sentence about Russia's future, or actually our policy towards Russia engagement or deterring. And as a neighboring country of Russia, direct neighbor of Russia, we would like to have a peaceful, democratic neighbor. It's our wish, but we know, and our experience shows that's actually not possible. And also engaging, we already tried this in the past. Wandel durch Handel hat nicht funktioniert. So I mean, also by Obama's America's approach, reset of relations between the United States and Russia, it didn't function. So I think the only strategy is deterrence and our own more investment in our own security and showing strength.
Thanks a lot. I would like now to open the opportunity for a few questions and maybe very brief comments to our panel. We will start with Wilfried Jilge. But please introduce yourself briefly.
Vielen Dank, Wilfried Jilge, Senior Advisor Ukraine and Wider Black Sea Region auf der Stabilization Platform. Ich berate die deutsche Politik auch zur Unterstützung der Ukraine. Mein erster Punkt ist, und zwar spiegelbildlich zu der Feststellung, dass wir nicht mehr über den ukrainischen Sieg reden, müssen wir vor allem über die Schwächung Russlands reden. Russland hat sich überdehnt, Russland ist nicht unbesiegbar. Und ich glaube, dieses Narrativ ist der große, empfindliche Punkt in der deutschen Debatte. Hier glaubt man nicht, dass man das eigentlich wirklich, dass man Russland überwinden kann. Und hier habe ich eine konkrete Frage, weil wir auch Kollegen aus Polen und den baltischen Staaten haben. Ich glaube, der entscheidende Punkt ist, dass wir Russlands Ölexport massiv empfindlich treffen. Und da hätte ich gerne die Frage beantwortet, was ist hier der nächste konkrete Schritt? Denn wir haben eben gesagt, wir sollen ins Handeln kommen, wir kommen aber nicht ins Handeln. Der russische Ölexport geht unvermindert weiter durch die Ostsee. Das ist der Hauptanteil. Das sind gigantische Summen für das russische Militärbudget. Meine Frage ist, Stichwort Regulierung der Tankerflotte, neue Kriterien der Tankerflotte, Pariser Memorandum zu diesen Kriterien. Es ist alles auf dem Tisch. Wann wird es jetzt endlich gemacht? Erster Punkt. Zweiter Punkt, Nicht-Anerkennungspolitik. Das Militärische erwähne ich jetzt gar nicht, das ist natürlich der erste Punkt, aber das ist alles besprochen worden. Da frage ich mich auch, wo sind wir da eigentlich und wer ist die Stimme in Europa, die da konkret spricht? Wer ist eigentlich das Subjekt in den künftigen Verhandlungen, wenn Europa doch nochmal an den Tisch kommt? Wer ist das sprechfähige Subjekt? Wie soll das aussehen? Und ganz konkret zur Anerkennungspolitik, was ist mit dem Asowschen Meer? geben wir das auf. Die Ukrainer fragen an, ob wir sie unterstützen können für eine Initiative, einen Prozess zur Feststellung der Seegrenzen einzuleiten. Sind wir bereit, so etwas zu tun, wenn die Amerikaner mit den Russen gleichzeitig alles um die Krim aufgeben? Ich glaube, das ist eine ganz wichtige Sache, die könnte für die nächsten Jahrzehnte noch eine Bedeutung haben. Danke.
Andrius, I would like to pass this question to you.
Well, being a commissioner, you are becoming much more restricted in your possibility to speak what you think sometimes even. So definitely, I picked one thing which I think is very important from the question. We need to start to understand that Russia is not really is really can be invincible. And that is why I'm saying we need to have a strategy. And one of the most important instruments in our strategy can be really, again, I am repeating, Ukraine, success of Ukraine. Let's see our policy towards Ukraine as some kind of policy towards broader East. Now, let's have this in mind. Because definitely when we're talking about security architecture in Europe, that's a very popular topic. I'm always asking a very simple question. What is our biggest threat? Our biggest threat is authoritarian, aggressive Russia. Is that forever? Or Russia can become different? Depending on that, depends also our security architecture. We in our region, we remember very well after Crimea occupation, very popular topic, and still now. Now it's called hybrid war. At that time, we were discussing so-called Gerasimov doctrine. Gerasimov, Russian chief of military staff, describes that for Russians there is no difference into what they call total war, starting from propaganda, social media, those little green men, and then real war. And some experts were calling it new generation warfare, and we are feeling that. We're facing that. One thing is what is happening in Ukraine, artillery, tanks, drones, and so on. Another thing, what is happening in the Baltic Sea, cables, what is happening in Germany, sabotage, and so on. And for me, it brings very simple challenge. When we're talking about our defense, we need to talk also about our new generation defense, which should cover much broader issues. So including shadow fleet and things like that. I don't know, about what is possible on Azov Sea and sea borders and things like that. But again, we need to raise those questions, and we need to really, to have our clear positions. And non-recognition, from my point of view, non-recognition of the occupied territories also should be followed by our very clear policy that some basic sanctions on Russia should not be removed, even when the peace treaty or whatever, or ceasefire will be agreed, while those territories will stay occupied. And that will be the biggest challenge for us, because if American side will move, down with the sanctions policy, unfortunately, with how sanctions are decided in the European Union, that will be, prolongation of the sanctions can become very soon very big challenge for us.
Thanks a lot. Maybe to the question on minimizing Russian oil exports via the Baltics. One of your the two Baltic neighbors would like to comment on that.
Well, in terms of staging some kind of operation, that would of course require serious planning and some kind of leadership, and of course the backup of serious military power. I would just like to remind you that NATO has only stepped in after 2.5 years of the war in the Baltic Sea, only when the 2 new member states have actually begun to suffer the consequences of the Russian operations, or someone else's operations, because actually this wasn't quite attributed, and this is also a problem. I mean, if you are to punish someone in a hard way, you need to attribute the fault. But of course, this is probably the next step in this European effort to regain control over its own security, because otherwise we will be having, you know, a big white hole in the European continent. But if I'm having the voice, let me have a comment on Commissioner Kubilius' answer. Of course, he has noted that being commissioner, he may not be quite free to speak his mind. But I'm quite curious, when and if are we Europeans brave enough? Will we become brave enough to launch our own hybrid war on Russia? Because we also have cyber capabilities, because we also have secret services, because we can also do nasty things to them if we decide so. So again, you know, the combined capability for the defense of Europe should also include that clandestine component. Thank you.
Can I make just very short comment?
Please.
You almost spoke my mind, because which I still not able to speak very, very loudly. But I'm asking myself a very simple question. What does it mean, defense? When you are talking about defense, of course, first of all, you are looking how to strengthen your own capabilities, military capabilities, and then you are looking how to diminish capabilities of your adversary. That is what Putin is doing. He is raising his military capabilities with war economy and, you know, and production of tanks and so on and so on. But also he is looking how to diminish our defense capabilities with all his hybrid attacks, with trying to bring, you know, political changes or whatever, diminishing our possibility to mobilize ourselves. I absolutely agree with your very, very strong comment about what we need to do if we're really serious about our own defense.
Thanks a lot. Thinking in that direction, I think, demands to realize or to recognize that to a certain degree we are already in a war with Russia. Not in the full-fledged military confrontation, but in a hybrid warfare. And this also is, I would say, there's a lot of hesitation to recognize that. So, but now continuing our question from the audience, please, I think you have been an early one. I'll come back to the others. Stellen Sie sich kurz vor, please.
Mein Name ist Nikita Žolker, ich arbeite für die Deutsche Welle. Herr Kubilius, ich habe eine Frage an Sie. Sie haben es kurz angeschnitten oder angedeutet, dass im Falle einer Waffenruhe oder wenn die Waffen dann schweigen, dass der Elan der Europäer jetzt wirklich mehr für ihre Verteidigung zu tun abnimmt. Das sagt auch Karl Massala in seinem neuen Buch, Wenn Russland gewinnt, glaube ich, heißt das Buch, dass nach ein paar Jahren eine Situation in Europa entstehen kann, wo es nicht nur ein Ministerpräsident in Ungarn gibt, der gegen die weitere Aufrüstung in Europa ist, sondern mehrere solche Staatschefs. Wie groß sehen Sie diese Gefahr und was können die Europäer oder die EU dagegen tun? Danke.
Vielen Dank. I would suggest to collect some questions. Matthias Nelles.
Yes, Matthias Nellis, German-Ukrainian Bureau, a small NGO here in Berlin and Düsseldorf. I wanted to ask the Dmytro Kuleba, former foreign minister, first of all, thank you for your eloquent clarity when it comes to the necessary speed of European decisions, because I see a real European resolve after the humiliation of Zelensky, but the question is how does it translate to weapons or deeds of the Europeans? So thank you for addressing that. And while we have the coalition negotiations ongoing here in Berlin, I wanted to ask you, what are the changes that you want the new coalition, Friedrich Merz and Lars Klingbeil, to undertake? What are really the necessary actions that you want them to take? And very briefly on Kubilius, I saw your presentation of the white paper in Brussels, and there was a question about the involvement of the UK. And you evaded the question a little bit, and I wanted to ask you to clarify, how can the UK defense market be part of the 150 billion loans, or what is needed for the UK to take part in this European rearm initiative? Thank you.
Okay, let's take a third question. Maybe Natascha?
Yes, hello. Natalia Prevarnicki ist mein Name von der Allianz Ukrainischer Organisation. Ich habe zwei Fragen. Einmal an Dmytro Kuleba. Er sprach davon, dass die EU Game Changer werden kann, wenn es schnell genug handelt. Welche sehr konkreten Schritte kann EU jetzt vornehmen? Vielleicht können Sie so 5 aufzählen oder einige aufzählen, die sehr konkret ja, einen Erfolg versprechen würden für die Unterstützung der Ukraine und auch für die eigene Sicherheit für Gesamteuropa. Und es wurde bereits angesprochen, dass Russland den Krieg gegen Westen führt, in der Ukraine hybrid und konventionell und gegen Deutschland zum Beispiel schon in hybriden Zügen. Also wir sehen die Sabotagen, wir sehen sehr konkrete Fälle, Cyberangriffe und so weiter. Kann sich Deutschland überhaupt noch von diesen Angriffen schützen und wie? Und die EU auch insgesamt? Also welche Strategien auch ganz konkret da angewandt werden können? Genau, das war's. Okay. Danke.
Thank you. Let's start with Dmytro Kuleba because he has to leave, as already mentioned at 3. Dmytro, please, several questions addressed to you.
Yes, I expect the new German government to be more assertive on all issues related to 3 things. First, supporting Ukraine. Second, rearming Europe. Third, relations with Russia, long-term perspective of the relations with Russia. So we should avoid situations when someone in Europe says, let's do this, and Germany says, let's not rush, let's think it through. Let's not do this, but half it and do half of it instead. This is what ideally should come. You asked me specifically what Europe should do. First, Europe should finalize the decisions it has made at the level of the European Council level. It should not allow these decisions related to defense expenses to drown in the implementation phase. And everyone who knows the European Union understands what are the risks here. Second, European countries and European Union should sign contracts with producers of weapons so that they can plan their production and buy all the spare parts, ensure that they have supply chains are functioning so that they begin to produce more weapons. Third, the European Union should reach out to those countries outside of the EU who have contracted European weapons and renegotiate with them to delay the delivery of these weapons for a later stage, and instead direct everything Europe produces has produced so far and will be producing in the coming months to Ukraine. Why? Because in the next 6 months, will be critical for ensuring deliveries to Ukraine, given that there will be no new commitments of the United States to deliver, to announce more new packages of assistance to Ukraine. So this is fundamental. And finally, Europe must find an answer to the most critical question, which is a sink and swim question for every nation. Who is going to give you? Where will nuclear umbrella for Europe come from? Because this is a long-term issue that will unfortunately define a lot of what will be happening in the next years. A conversation of nuclear deterrence is a separate one, but this is, to anyone who wants to dedicate some of his or her time to reflect on it, please read the news from September/November 2022 about the risk of nuclear strike on Ukraine and the reaction of the West to it. So we endlessly talk about conventional war, and it's important, it's fundamental, but in the long run, there is a ceiling in everything a nation can do, and that ceiling is nuclear deterrence. And that conversation needs to begin now, because these kind of solutions are not found within a short period of time.
Thanks a lot. Dmytro, this you opened a very big file for another discussion, how to complement our strengthening of Europeans' conventional military capacities by nuclear shields. I would like to pass now to Andrius Kubilius. The first question was directed at you.
Well, here were several questions on relaxation. What will happen with relaxation of Europeans if peace will come? Definitely, we need to have very clear understanding that personally, I'm absolutely sure that Putin will not stop producing weapons in the same speed as he is producing now. And it will mean that, his capabilities to wage the war against, intelligence services are predicting, against the EU and NATO member states, even will increase, because he will not spend those weapons on Ukrainian territory. So that's what we need to take into account. So it would be a very big mistake if we would say, okay, ceasefire and peace is here and we can relax. That's my very simple point. Now, second question was on how new programs, rearm Europe programs, how they are open for such countries like Ukraine, like United Kingdom or Canada. They are open, and even with additional possibilities if you compare with what the European Union was implementing earlier. If you take 150 billion euros of attractive loans, so we need to remember that 650 billion will come besides 150 from national defense spending, and national defense spending, member states are procuring what they want. We are worried that they are procuring too much of weapons outside from European industry, and that is weakening our possibilities. So we want to incentivize member states to spend more money on European industry, because European industry is very crucial for us as some kind of real strategic defense resource, but member states are deciding by themselves. You remember Draghi report that at the very beginning of the war, Europeans were spending only 20% of their finances, defense finances, on European production. 65% were, spent in American defense market. So that's one thing which we understand as a problem. So that will stay as it is on 150 billion loans. So I can repeat again what, who will be able to become a contractor, I mean, provide weapons for those loans. First of all, of course, European Union member states, then Ukraine, and then Norway and countries from EAA, from European Economic Area. Second, third countries can also be contractors if they have established entities in the territory of European Union. And if they are not able to produce enough of weapons, in their established entities, then they can produce those weapons even outside of European Union. New possibility is so-called, totally new paragraph is about so-called partnerships. If the country will sign partnership agreement on defense and security with the European Union, then those money also will be possible to spend procuring weapons from that country. So we have several of those partnerships with Japan, with South Korea. Now I think that with UK also can be done very soon, also with Canada. So that's new opening. And and the question was, is European Union able to move fast? Definitely, this is a question which, sometimes, how to say, it looks like that we never will be able to move fast, but this time we're moving very fast. And a special procedure, so-called Article 122, is used from the Treaty of European Union. Our parliament is not very happy because parliament in that case is not involved into discussions. But, decisions can be made even in the council with qualified majority voting. And that allows us to expect that very soon, in weeks' time, because yesterday again was very positive evaluation of what we proposed as regulations after the last council, during 2 weeks, our services prepared all the documents, legal regulations. Yesterday they were, blessed by the council. Now formal decisions can come very soon. And then we expect that in weeks or months' time, member states will start to apply for the loans and for possibilities to move ahead with implementation of that package.
Thanks a lot. Comment from Marieluise.
Ja, ich glaube, wir müssen tatsächlich auch Energie da reinsetzen, in unseren Köpfen ein bisschen aufzuräumen. Wenn man die US-Debatte rumdrehen würde und deutsche Bundestagsabgeordnete müssten in ihren Wahlkreisen erklären, dass das Gesundheitswesen nicht nur überzeugend ist, dass es mit den Renten schwierig ist, etc. pp. Aber ein überproportionaler Teil des Haushalts, etwa 3,5–4%, werden für die Sicherung der USA ausgegeben, während in den USA nur 2% oder unter 2% dafür aufgebracht würde, hält kein demokratisch gewählter Abgeordneter so eine Debatte durch. Und insofern ist das, was Trump jetzt noch mal mit mehr Vehemenz und er ist ja nicht besonders beliebt bei uns, sagen wir es mal vorsichtig, aber ist natürlich diese Debatte aus den USA durch und durch legitim. Und dass wir jetzt darüber so erstaunt sind, ist sowas von unerwachsen und unreif. Es muss vollkommen klar sein, selbstverständlich haben die USA und die Bevölkerung dort, die wissen, dass gerade in der Europäischen Union manche Sozialleistung sehr viel besser aussieht als in den USA, dass dort keine große Begeisterung auskommt bei dieser Unwucht zwischen den USA und uns. Und da kann man nur sagen, wenn wir die Tür da weiter auflassen, wird Trump jeden Morgen noch einmal da durchgehen. Das Zweite, wir haben in Deutschland, und da geht es wieder um unsere Haltung, wir haben ja in den letzten Jahren diese große Invasion Russlands, einen Aggressionskrieg begleitet mit einmal Keep us out und das zweite Don't escalate. Das klingt sehr einleuchtend und sehr fürsorglich für die eigenen nationalen Interessen. Allerdings ist ja unser nationales Interesse letztlich doch geschützt zu werden durch Artikel 5 der NATO. Wer mit diesen Argumenten hantiert, möglicher Atomschlag und keine Eskalation, was werden die eigentlich sagen, wenn Litauen, Estland, Lettland, wenn dort ein Angriff durch Russland vollzogen wird? Müssen wir dann nicht auch sagen, ja, eigentlich müsste Artikel 5 gelten, aber guckt euch doch mal an, 2,1 Millionen, die sollen wir jetzt, deren wegen sollen wir uns jetzt in Gefahr begeben für unsere 450 Millionen andere Millionen EU-Bürgerinnen und Bürger. Diese Logik, dass man jetzt bei der Ukraine sich in dieser Weise zurückhalten muss, die würde mit Sicherheit auch gelten und greifen dann, wenn wir nach wie vor mit dieser Haltung auf einen Angriff reagieren im NATO-Gebiet. Das heißt, wir müssen neu ansetzen. Der Atomschlag und das, oder der Atomschirm, Entschuldigung, der Atomschirm, und ich glaube, das ist die schlechte Nachricht und die konnte man gestern lernen von einem Horowitz von der SWP, der genau zu dieser Frage, was für einen Atomschirm könnten wir denn selber aufbauen, wenn die USA anfangen, sich schrittweise zu erziehen. Das ist eine unerfreuliche Analyse, mit der wir da zu tun haben, weil selbst ein französischer Atomschirm, wie er jetzt aussieht, nicht im Ansatz die Fähigkeiten hat, auch differenziert und in Schritten zu agieren, wie das bisher der amerikanische Atomschirm für uns ist. Insofern ist natürlich das Ringen darum, dass eine Trump-Administration nicht vollständig sich aus der NATO verabschiedet, ist schon etwas, was wir auch aus eigenem Interesse betreiben müssen. Und ich hoffe immer noch darauf, dass es in der Grand Old Party doch noch Köpfe gibt, die jetzt zwar noch schweigen, aber dann doch sehen, dass dieser Kurs Musk-Trump auch ihr Land letztlich droht, vor die Wand zu fahren.
Thank you. Maybe two last questions from the audience before we come to a final round here on the panel. Michaele Schreier.
Ja, ich möchte ergänzen zu dem, was du sagtest, Marieluise, sagen, für den Fall, dass Russland einen baltischen Staat angreifen würde, wäre ja nicht nur die Frage, ob dann Artikel 5 greift, sondern es greift dann die Beistandsklausel des EU-Vertrages. Und das ist etwas, was hier überhaupt nicht im Bewusstsein ist, dass der EU-Vertrag eine sehr viel strengere Beistandsklausel hat, nämlich dass keine Entscheidung mehr da ist, sondern jeder Staat dann mit dem, was zur Verfügung steht, was der Staat hat, den anderen Staat, den anderen EU-Staat, der angegriffen worden ist, verteidigen muss. Und dann stellt sich natürlich die Frage, inwieweit die EU dann überhaupt fähig wäre, koordiniert vorzugehen. Da ist noch eine Menge Arbeit zu leisten, weil man sich immer gesagt hat, nein, dann käme Artikel 5 des NATO-Vertrages. Also hier ist noch eine Menge Arbeit zu leisten und es ist, glaube ich, auch für jeden einzelnen Mitgliedstaat und auch für Deutschland sehr, sehr wichtig, dass man sich dieses Artikels stärker bewusst wird und die Kooperation verstärkt.
Thanks a lot. Obligations are one thing, capacity is another one. Next question or comment?
Klaus Wittmann, former general. I teach history at Potsdam University. I would like, since you allowed also small comments, I would like to try out an idea on the panel and to reach Mr. Kubilius and our Polish and Mr. Kuleba. Let me speak in English, but I cannot but preface it with a remark that comes back, that echoes what was said here on the stage. One should not look back at all the time, but as an activist for Ukraine over the years and as a historian, I cannot but feel great bitterness imagining where Ukraine would stand today if in the autumn of 22 they had received sufficient combat vehicles, or in the autumn of 23 the Taurus cruise missile, in order to heavily impair Russian command and control and logistics and firing sites. And I know already how historians will look back in a few years at the overcautious President Biden and the constantly hesitant Chancellor Kohl. But the idea I would like to try out goes back to the question that was asked here about how to deal with Trump. We have a NATO summit. No, with Trump. Now with Trump. You asked, it was asked how to deal with Trump, and you made some remarks to that effect. And there is a NATO summit coming up, and there are already horror expectations. It will not take place at all, or it will result in an explosion, or the secure will no longer be an American, or the nuclear umbrella will be lifted. I think we should keep our nerves. And let me tell you, at the elevated level of officials and at the military levels, cooperation is going on very well, no matter what Haggith does at the Pentagon.
But please, what is your proposal or your idea?
Yeah, the idea is that we should aim for a soft landing in cooperation with the US. Trump is amenable to, for instance, Rutte's explanations of the growing efforts of the Europeans. And I think it should be a concerted process, a kind of roadmap towards the Europeanization of NATO. And some people talk about a new strategic concept. That would be too early. I think the one from Madrid is okay, but the idea of a transatlantic compact, and as one who was involved directly or indirectly in all the strategic concepts of NATO, I can say that sometimes the process is more important than the document, and it will clear the minds and will identify discrepancies. And
please, we have to come to...
Yes, and the question is, what do you think about that?
Thanks a lot. So, final round. Is Dmytro still with us? No, he left. Okay. Whatever you want to comment in your final remarks, I would like to that you also spend some reflections on EU integration of Ukraine. What should be done to speed up the process? And what should be the next steps? Including changing the methodology of the negotiations, because this is one of the really concrete perspectives we can offer to Ukraine.
Shall I start?
Let's go around this row.
I would totally agree with the general that the negotiated withdrawal, if you like, of the United States is the only way forward for Europe. That would guarantee us, you know, at least the level that we can accept, although maybe not the total protection that we thought existed not a long time ago. Any other scenario would be a catastrophe. And I guess today's article in the FT already suggests that there is some kind of negotiation behind the curtains happening between the Europeans and towards the United States about that controlled withdrawal, about the speedy acceptance of Ukraine to the European Union. I guess this will be a little bit complicated for the countries who, like my country, Poland, have actually demonstrated that they want to negotiate from position of power towards Ukraine, thinking that their interests and legitimate interests may be jeopardized by the accession of such a huge country with such similar potentials in many fields. But as it was suggested here at this table, at this panel, the times are different. And maybe it's the time also for Poland and for other countries to accept it, that in order for Europe to become geopolitical and strong, some interests could be negotiated in other ways. Thank you.
Yeah.
You asked what we can offer Ukraine, but I would like to stress that we can learn a lot of Ukraine, from Ukraine, and for example, courage and the desire for freedom. These are values that we take for granted in our everyday lives. So Ukraine has destroyed the myth of Russia's invincibility. So Ukraine's place is within European Union and NATO because we share common values.
Thanks a lot,
Yeah.
Andrius.
Briefly, well, what we need to do and what we need to understand. First of all, we need to understand that, we shall not stop Putin reading him our white paper or, European Union Treaty Article 42.7. So article is very important, but that's not, what we need to have. We need to really move very rapidly into what I would call implementation. We made good decisions, both, political, financial, industrial policy decisions. Now we need to implement. Implementation, simplification, and realization of the opportunities which are created now for member states. The question is how much member states will use those opportunities. And here we need to speak very clearly. Defense is realization of the most important European value of solidarity. We all depend on collective defense possibilities. And if one country is not investing into her own defense, if the country is not investing 2% or 3%, it not just weakens herself, it weakens the whole possibility for all the member states to feel that they are defended. So that's very important. And the question on Trump, and what should we do with Trump? I'm always answering to myself, at least, and my team, that I feel quite bad that we are spending so much of time discussing what Trump will do and how we should react. If we would spend so much time on discussing what we should do, without looking too much onto what Trump is doing, we would be much more effective and much more successful.
Thanks a lot. Finally, Marieluise.
Demokratien sind leider anfällig und schwierig, wenn es darum geht, Interessen, durchaus auch berechtigte Gruppeninteressen vertreten zu müssen, weil die nächste Wahl ansteht, gleichzeitig aber Verpflichtungen zu haben, die ein größeres Dach sind. Also Polen, die Lkw-Fahrer streiken und blockieren die Grenze, weil die ukrainischen Lastwagenfahrer sie unterbieten. Für den Bereich der Landwirtschaft ist das ein riesiger Hemmschuh innerhalb der Europäischen Union. Unendliche Mittel werden da reingegeben, um die nationalen Gruppen bei Laune zu halten. Und das muss man sich einfach klar machen. Deswegen glaube ich schon, dass die politische Verantwortung ist, sehr eindringlich und sehr deutlich klarzumachen, what is at stake. Und das bedeutet, unsere Gesellschaften in der Vielfalt, in der Freiheit. Ich glaube, man muss immer auch sagen, in absence of corruption, weil autoritäre und diktatorische Regime immer Korruption bedeuten. Also Freiheit from Corruption. Und ich glaube, dass ein historischer Anklang, dass München 38 und letztlich nicht den Frieden bewahrt hat und dass Polen erfahren musste, dass die beiden Diktaturen die gemeinsame Sache gemacht haben, so bitter bezahlt hat. Und dass ein Krieg, in den zu spät eingetreten wurde und auf den man sich zu spät vorbereitet hatte, dann nicht mehr verhindert werden konnte. Wir brauchen diese Debatten, ich glaube in Deutschland ganz besonders, weil wir noch so tief in der Denke stehen, für Frieden darf nicht eskaliert werden, wegen des Friedens darf nicht aufgerüstet werden. Der Begriff Abschränkung hat schon etwas Aggressives und Bellizistisches. Ich glaube, wir haben wirklich in Deutschland einen langen Weg zu gehen und ich hoffe, dass das in den nächsten 4 Jahren ein Stück vorangeht.
Thanks a lot. Thank you all for this very thoughtful, substantial and serious discussion. Special thanks to Andrius Kubilius for taking time in your busy schedule. So no lengthy final words, just I would say 4 conclusions. There was a lot of unity concerning this, I would say, the European political agenda now vis-à-vis Ukraine, Russia, and also the US concerning potential negotiations and the outcome on the outcome of the war. The first one is nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. The second, no recognition of territorial conquests of Russia and no partition of Ukraine into a Western and Russian sphere. The third one is full sovereignty, defending full sovereignty of Ukraine, both in terms of domestic and foreign policies. And this includes no exclusion of NATO accession, even if it will not take place tomorrow. So no way back to limited sovereignty in Europe. And the final one is EU integration of Ukraine is not negotiable. The other way around, it must be accelerated. And this, all the four points, issues will only happen if we speed up our political, military, financial support for Ukraine now. This is the sense of urgency we should communicate now to the next German government. Thank you very much.